It's not been this long in years. Yeah, thank you. Oh my God, I'll take it, Melanie. Give me.
And all Alexandria, right. Hello. We
are live? Yeah.
Okay, we're live. Hello. It's the Boozy Book Broads. It's Friday night. And it is, I almost said it was April. In my mind, it is still April.
Yeah.
For all of our deadlines, wouldn't it be great if it was April? I would love it if it was April.
I would weep with joy if it was still April. Although then we have to go through a lot of things. I do not want to go through.
Thank you. Oh my God, I'll take it, Melanie. Give me. I'm so sorry. I'm like,
and Alexandria, hello. Before we.
Sorry about that.
Because
that was me. Sorry.
And Angelina, we could hear her watching herself on YouTube.
I know.
Okay, I want to make sure I can see everybody's faces. So here, this is weird. Okay, here we go. Hold on. There we are. Okay, hello, Alexandria. How are you?
Good. How are you guys?
Good. You're like, what am I in for? What did I get what did I get myself into? So, yes, if you are joining us, this is the Boozy Book Broads. I'm Melanie Johnson, and we have Angelina M. Lopez and Daniel Dresser. And tonight, we are thrilled to bring you author Alexandria Bellflore. And if I said that incorrectly, please correct me. All right, Alexandria Bellflore, the author of Written in the Stars and the recent release, Hang the Moon. So, hello, Alexandria.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, we're delighted to have you, especially this month being Pride Month, which is awesome to have you here this month. Alexandria, her debut novel, Written in the Stars, won a Lambda Award. So congratulations, that's amazing for lesbian romance. So that was very exciting, and we are going to jump right into all the good stuff. So I'm going to let our room mom take it away with a couple of quick announcements.
Yeah, so remember, if you participate in the chat, you will be in the running for a $10 gift certificate from Love Sweet Arrow. You can spend it on books and all the amazing merch they have. The merch of the month is the Sultry Summer Surprise Boxes. They're going to put a code. Oh, I will put a code. Someone put a code in our chat. That is the you can get 10% off, 10% with our code. It's BBB June discount. I will put that in the chat. But it's all Sultry Summer Surprise Boxes. Is that our boxes,
That
Melanie?
was what I wanted to ask Marissa before she ran away, so we'll double check.
Okay.
So now's a good time to let everyone know that there will be a special Boozy Book Broads Summer Surprise Box. And that there will be cocktail recipes from each of us, and we each picked out a summer read, a mass market paperback, a trade, and a Harlequin. And so there's going to be a special exclusive candle and all kinds of fun stuff. And there will be more information about being able to pre-order that and get on a waiting list for those surprise boxes. And we'll update it. We'll send out links.
And I just got confirmation from Marissa via text message that the sultry summer box, surprise boxes. That's a lot of alliteration.
And it's Friday.
Are the Boozy Book Broads. Yeah. Boozy Book Broads summer books. So yeah, that is what that is for. So check it out. We had a lot of fun putting them together. We picked some really great books that, will be a surprise, but I think there will be like a Danielle box, an Angelina box, and a Melanie box. So it's gonna be great. Yeah. It's gonna be super fun.
Yeah, so summer, just think alliteration in your probably, so summer sultry surprise Boozy Book Broads box. Okay. So yeah, so the code for that is BBB June discount, and you get 10% off, and we'll put all that in the chat. Yeah. All right. So speaking of the chat, make sure if you have questions for Alexandria, if you have questions about her books or about anything else, to put it in the chat. And our room mom this evening, Angelina, will make sure to ask those questions. And the more you engage in the chat, the more chances you have to win the gift card. Because that's how we just pick a comment from the chat. So, raise the stakes. And if you see me looking down, I'm just checking because I'm in charge tonight, so I'm just checking my notes. So we can discuss things. So we're going to get started with our introductions and what we're drinking. Let us start with our featured guest, Alexandria. Hello.
I am sipping on a flirtini, a nice green cocktail of vodka and pineapple juice and dry champagne. My favorite cocktail choice. I thought it was kind of fitting for the book and the summer.
Yeah, it's super cute. And I was reading you can usually like put a maraschino cherry in it too to add even a little bit more of a flirty vibe. So super
Exactly.
cute. Yeah. Angelina, what are you drinking?
So I decided to embrace keto because I had lots of comfort during the pandemic and I just needed to get rid of some of the comfort of the pandemic. So I embraced keto about 3 months ago. And so I still love my cocktails, but I can't do a lot of sugar in the cocktails. So this is a bunch of watermelon, some tequila, and some kiwi limes. And it's really delicious, and I super keto. Watermelon is keto, and so I highly recommend it. So anyway, I love the flirtini. I just couldn't do a lot. Nobody's tying my hand behind my back, but yeah, trying to stick. So anyway, it's very refreshing and alcoholic. So big thumbs up to this one.
It looks super fancy. I like it. So I'm not a big fan of watermelon personally. I know it's like the summer food, and I can't stand it, but it looks super cute. All right, Danielle. Danielle is actually on vacation right now, so you better be enjoying a cocktail.
I am, yeah. So I am in Ojai, California. It's beautiful and amazing. But so I don't have my usual background. So I'm sorry, we get the evening light, so I apologize I'm probably gonna get washed out at some point. But anyway.
You look lovely.
Thank you. But yes, I'm drinking a rosé, a Lorenza Spritz that I paid way too much for, but it's good. It's really nice. So
Lorenzo Spritz. That sounds very yes. I hope it tastes as fancy as it sounds.
Yeah, totally.
It's really good. I really like it. Yeah.
So we always start out with fun little questions that we like to call shots. Alexandria, and since your drink of the evening was a flirtini, which I thought was a super cute name for a cocktail, I wanted to ask, and if you're in the chat, you can answer this question too. I wanted to ask, what is your favorite cute or funny name for a cocktail?
Let's see, funny name, probably a slippery nipple. I can't order it with a straight face. So.
That is kind of the test. If it's a cocktail that you can't especially if you've already been drinking a little bit, because then you can't even get that word out.
Right, exactly.
Angelina, what about you?
Sex on the beach, sex. It's on a beach. So yeah, if I had a goofy name for something, it's that. And they're actually very good. If you're gonna order a stupid shot, get Sex on a Beach. Highly delicious.
So fun fact, the candle in the Boozy Book Broad Summer Surprise Box, we called it Sexy Books on the Beach. And it is going to smell like cranberry, peach, and orange or pineapple, whatever a Sex on the Beach cocktail is, it's those scents in the candle. So yeah, so Sex on the Beach is good. Danielle, what about you?
That was mine, Sex on the Beach, because I think it's just perfect, I think, and it embodies the feel of having that drink, you know what I mean, just the idea of it all. But so I was thinking, this is just me personally, I like when you combine cocktails and but it's funny. So I remember this one restaurant, I can't remember where it was, somewhere in Chicago, but they had margaritas, which were like a margarita
mojito.
Yes, or a beer mosa, which is just you have beer and orange juice instead of champagne. So it's when they combine, it's like a Blue Moon it's like a wheat beer.
Okay. That sounds more doable.
Yeah.
First I was like,
yeah.
What?
Right. No, if you have the wrong kind of beer, it's not very good. But a Blue Moon or kind of one of those wheat-based beers with orange juice in it. But yeah, so I guess that's my take on it, because of course, right now I'm drawing a blank on funny cocktail names. So I know some more. So
in the chat, Spiral 1080 said, I don't do cocktails, but blowjob is my go-to shot. And so now everybody.
Oh, yes, that's the cream on top, and you have to put your hands behind your back, and then you have to scoop it up. Like,
yeah, I have a funny story about that. When I turned 21, my friends took me out to a bar by campus, and they ordered me a blowjob shot. And I had to have my hands behind my back, but they used like a double shot, the wide mouth shot. It was a disaster. It was I think you can imagine where this is going. It was bad.
Choke a little bit.
Our moms are on this call.
I know.
Oh, it's awesome. I mean, it's memorable. Yeah. Oh, I have not thought of blowjob shots in years. So kudos to whoever talked about that.
Spiral 1080 said Kahlua, Bailey's, and Amaretto topped with whipped cream, which honestly sounds delicious.
It's all in the execution, man. That's the. So one of the cocktails I thought was funny, I think I talked about this recently, is the Dirty Girl Scout. So it's like Kahlua, Irish cream, something like that. And then there's also the Slutty Redhead, which is which is Jaeger and something else. So I can see why that would be an aptly named drink, because I do a shot of Jaeger, and Slutty Redhead is about right. So those are the funny cocktail names. And I want to, speaking of embarrassing moments, like trying to do a blowjob shot, that's 2 times too big. So in Hang the Moon, there is a scene on the Ferris wheel in Seattle. And the couple, they're not a couple yet, they're friends hanging out, and they get on, and they just had coffee. They just walked around and had coffee. And so she has to pee, but she's like, we'll just go ride it, and then I'll pee afterwards. Big mistake. Always a big mistake. So of course, the thing has a technical malfunction. It's stuck. It's broken down. She's stuck. She's doing the pee-pee dance, crossing her legs, trying to, hold it for as long as she possibly could. And then they announce how it's now going to be like a 30-minute wait before we might be moving again. And then it's like 45-minute wait before we might be moving again. So finally, she's at her wit's end. And the hero, Brendan, he's like, I have this coffee cup if you need it. And so she finally, gives in to the pressure, literally, and takes care of business in the Ferris wheel. So I could relate, because I've had a moment, not on a Ferris wheel, thank goodness, but I've had a moment where it was so bad that I actually did pee in a coffee cup and then put the lid on. And it was a styrofoam. It was like a coffee cup from Panera. So I was like, I clearly can remember the details. It was horrible. So my question, Broads and Alexandria, let's start with you, Alexandria. Have you ever had a PP emergency that required some creative solutions?
Okay, well, this didn't happen to me, but I witnessed it, so I'm going to share it. So I did theater in high school, and we had the green room backstage, and there was a bathroom, right off of the green room. But one of the rules was that you couldn't flush the toilet during performances because you could hear it in the auditorium. And so I definitely walked into the green room on multiple occasions to someone just like peeing in a coffee cup. I saw it happen so many times, but I didn't have to do it, thankfully.
Thankfully.
Oh my gosh. That is a really bad location but I can totally see I can totally see it happening. Like no flushing during performances. Oh my goodness. Angelina, how about you?
I had an experience. I was like 16 or 17 years old, and we had a big Oktoberfest, as a lot of cities do. We had a big Oktoberfest, and I was there with my bunch of high school friends, inappropriately drinking, inappropriately drunk, and like running through the crowd. And my girlfriends and I, there were like 5 of us, and we desperately had to go back then. We were like going to run back to the car and like pee near the car. I don't know what we were thinking. We were just running to go to the bathroom. And we decided to go through like the tent, like this big tent, like there's an Oom Pah Pah band and the whole thing. We were like winding through it. And we come around this table, and like either next to or on top of the table, it's my mom and my stepdad, and she's drunk and I'm drunk, and you know, she's appropriately drunk and I'm inappropriate, and she's like, because she doesn't want to be seen drunk, and I'm like, because I don't want to see drunk, and I just keep running. And we never spoke of it again. Like, it was it. And I think if I hadn't had to go to the bathroom, I probably would have been a lot more like, come up with an excuse and explain and stuff. But at that point, like we just separated and kept running. So it was like having to desperately go to the bathroom was like my saving grace in that moment.
Like when you really, really have to pee, you can't think straight.
There's nothing else happening. Like you just have to go. And it got me out of like explaining to my mom, like, no, I was just, I don't know what I would have come up with at that moment, but yeah.
Danielle, how about you?
This was hard. I like don't have that. I don't think I have really an emergency pee situation, but I remember we went camping this was like, I mean, almost a decade ago at this point. I'm trying to think. But anyway, you know, and I am not the most outdoorsy person. I will go outside, obviously, but you know, and I just was like, and we were camping and we had rented canoes and we had stopped at one point, and everyone was like, I was like, oh my gosh, I really have to go to the bathroom. And everyone's like, just go in the lake. No one cares. And I was like, I care, like being really outrageous. I was like, I care. And so then I had to go. So then I had to like go in the woods, you know, and of course it wasn't poison ivy, but there was something that I was near that like made my legs itch. So like, then I did just go, and then I went back to the lake and was like, I don't know, using sand to like exfoliate. It was a mess. It was like, really.
And that was the last time Danielle went camping.
Almost, no. Now I require a camper. I will not go camping. So.
Oh my goodness. So I used to camp. In my early 20s, we did a lot of camping. We'd go rock climbing and camp. It was just kind of a fun thing to do. Obviously a lot of drinking was involved. Yeah. So I learned to do a push-up, like, so you didn't have to like take your pants all the way off to pee, like, because I didn't want to get them dirty. So you kind of do a plank push-up, so to speak, and gravity takes care of the rest. And now that's too much information, so we're going to move. But if you're ever camping again, you could try it. It actually works. So this is something really fun that I thought was really cute in Alexandria's book, is a lot of the chapters open with all of the horoscope signs and things like, you know, a song or a movie or a situation that would be connected to that sign. And so my question obviously is, I want to know everyone's sign. And there's like these kind of set attributes that are usually, you know, attributed to each sign. I'm curious if you feel like if what you are is what you are. And I know it gets more technical than that. There's the rising and descending and what your moon sign and all that is, but we'll just stick to the basics for right now. So Alexandria, what is your sign?
The basics. I had an answer prepared that like was broad. So I'm a Pisces sun, and I do think it's accurate for me. I'm, you know, creative, intuitive, emotional, but with, you know, my Taurus rising, I think kind of adds a little pragmatic element to it. But yeah, I think it's accurate for me. Yeah.
Okay. Angelina?
I'm Virgo, and it's, yeah, definitely like accurate. Like Danielle's already like, yeah, she is. Yeah, I'm a total Virgo. Like I'm like a list oriented and kind of like fussy. And like my freshman year in the dorms, there was this sexual horoscope going around, like this book about sexual horoscopes. And like Virgos were horrible in bed. And I was like, hey now, like, so I ended up marrying a Virgo. And so now it's great because it's like, we don't know that we're horrible in bed because we're both Virgos. We're like, oh my God, we're awesome. So that was my whole goal.
Two negatives make a positive. So
exactly.
Danielle, how about you? What's your sign?
Yeah, I know. I like this. It is. It's like Are you asking me out? No, I'm kidding. But yeah, I am an Aries, and I think for the most part, it's pretty accurate. I don't think I don't know. So I'm doing this and my mom is like right over there. So she'll probably say yes or no. I don't think I'm too like fiery as an Aries, but I do think I'm determined and like kind of a leader sometimes when I have to be. But what's interesting, so I am going to get into it a little bit because my birthday is March 24th, so I'm right at the beginning of Aries. So I'm very close to Pisces, and then, but my actual, I was born early, so my actual due date, I would have been a Taurus. And so sometimes I do read the other horoscopes just to see, or look at like the, you know, the general information. And I do actually think I'm kind of a good mix of all three in some regard. But then I think also if you do look at it like in too broad of a way, then you're like, well, yeah, I'm kind of a Virgo too, and I'm an Aquarius, you know, like we're all of them. So.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned about, you know, like being born at a different time than you're supposed to be born. I was born 2 months early, so I was actually supposed to be a Taurus and Taurus rising. So I really feel like that's applicable. So I always read both.
I like that.
It is fascinating, and I started to get into it a little bit more, just because some of my friends are really into it, and so they talk about it. And I'm a Scorpio, and I didn't really think about it too much, but there are certain things, like certain behaviors of mine, that one of my author friends, her husband is also a Scorpio, and like she'll be complaining about things he does, and I'll be like, well, I can kind of see why, you know, because that's like my behavior. Like we're very like when I'm angry, like it's very like I will hold all of it in and then just lash out all at once. Like, and so she's describing this, and I'm like, you're kind of talking about me. And she's like, you Scorpios.
So one of our most ardent Boozy Book Broad viewers, Robert Zimmerman, is also a Scorpio. He said most of the match if you ask.
Speaking of, we're supposed to be the best in bed, Angelina.
I mean, like, how would I know? Like,
I'm sure there's more to it. If that's all it takes, is like when you're born.
Yeah, really, right? Susan Kay is a Capricorn. Lauren Wittes is a Capricorn. Robert is a Scorpio. Brianne is a Cancer. Everyone seemed to think like their signs match them. Spiral 1080 is a Sagittarius. Definitely relate to the strengths and weaknesses. Yeah. So everyone seemed to think that their signs match.
It's super fun, and I think that's part of the fun of your book, Alexandria, is kind of those having that woven into the story. It just is. It's just like an added like little bonus thing that's just so fun. So if you haven't read the book yet, you need to go and get it so you can. I listened to the audio, so like they went by so quickly. I wanted to go back. I had to go back and look at them again because you only listened to them. So we're going to jump in now to the full bottle. This is where we get into the discussion. And as I'm talking to Alexandria, if you have questions, make sure you drop them in the chat. If you want her to elaborate on something, and Angelina will make sure that we get to it as we can. So as I mentioned, Hang the Moon is her debut, and it was Hang the Moon is book 2. The first book was Written in the Stars, and that was the one that just won the Lambda. And so there's some crossover here. So in the first book, we have Darcy, who is the sister of the main male character in Hang the Moon, Brendan. So we have siblings. And then there's Annie, who is the best friend of Darcy. So very interwoven relationships here. So I wanted to ask you first, was there some challenges in that? Because I know each book is supposed to stand alone. So were there some challenges in writing those kind of interconnected, interwoven characters in both books?
Definitely. I mean, it was always my plan to give Brendan his own book and to have him end up with Annie. So I tried to like incorporate some Easter eggs and some hints into Written in the Stars where you could kind of see that setup. What I found challenging was that Brendan in book 1 was portrayed as kind of like, you know, the not annoying, but kind of like meddlesome baby brother. And so taking him in that light and then making him the hero in book 2, but keeping those character traits consistent, but making them attractive. That was kind of a struggle, you know? So that was probably something that I had to refine the most in revisions, like actually taking those like stubborn traits, but actually making them like, appealing.
Well, that's a great point though, because in book 1, it's written, in Darcy's POV, the older sister. So you're going to see him as kind of the annoying baby brother. So you've already got that kind of spin on it coming from her POV. So that makes sense that like these characteristics would be viewed through that lens. And then now we're viewing them from the lens of someone, well, himself, first of all, and also the woman who will fall in love with him. So that's a really good point. And you just said that you did always plan to give Brendan and Annie a book. So that was set up from the beginning. You knew you wanted to do that. So you had that way to weave that into the next book. So for book 3, which is Count Your Lucky Stars, yes? Can we get a teaser of who that's going to be focused on?
Yeah, so Count Your Lucky Stars is going to follow Margot, who is the best friend of Elle, who is in book 1, and then becomes Brendan's friend during book 1, and then mostly in book 2, Hang the Moon. So yeah, it's Margot's story, and I'm really excited for her to get her HEA, since she's kind of sassy and snarky, and it's a second chance romance. It comes out on February 1st.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I'm finishing up copy edits right now.
I was gonna say you're probably almost through it, so that's soon.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, I know it's not soon, but in publishing terms, it's soon.
Yeah.
So that's exciting. Count Your Lucky Stars, February, and I know because I was looking through stuff while I was getting ready for the chat, and a lot of people were asking for her book, so that's perfect. They're gonna really love that. So speaking of Brendan, he is not your typical romance hero. He's a sweet boy. Some people call the term soft boy, but he's sweet. He loves love, and he talks about like he wanted to be Hugh Grant, like that was his like dream, is to be Hugh Grant. So although he still has the broad shoulders and 4 arms that and it made sense because when he's rock climbing and stuff, like, oh, okay, I see how he can get that physique.
That in specifically so that he could have that physique. Because he works in tech, so I needed an excuse.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's not a bad thing to have, that's for sure. And I love that he's freckly and that he's a ginger. It's super cute. So with Brendan, what elements, because he's the adorkable hero, he's the kind of nerdy boy. What are some of the traits that you felt were important to include in his character? And this might be some of the things you talked about earlier that were annoying that now we have to make appealing.
Well, I wanted him to be charming and very well-intentioned, but I wanted his execution to be flawed. So great intentions and not quite sticking the landing always, but in a way that kind of makes him more endearing because of his desire to try so hard and persist even when he fails. Just really trying hard, listening to Annie and what she wants and trying to deliver on it.
Aw, yeah, he's so sweet. When he talked about how he wanted to be Hugh Grant, I was like, not the real Hugh Grant, but like Hugh Grant, and yes, we get it, not the one who got into a little bit of trouble. Yes. So were there any fictional heroes or real life characters that you kind of maybe were inspired by, for Brendan?
I have visual cues too.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, I pulled these off of my my dream board, but like my book board for the book.
Yeah, your inspiration board. Yeah.
Okay, so this is what Brendan looks like.
Oh, it's Ken Beck.
Yes, Ken Beck. Yes. So this is what he looks like. Ken
Beck was my inspiration for my debut hero. So
yes, love Ken Beck. You know who he is because I mentioned him and people. Yeah. But then he likes to say anything, so he's a little bit of like a Lloyd, a little bit, but not as creepy. He's a little bit of like a Finnick O'Dare from the Hunt, kind of, charming and a little cocky. And then of course Hugh Grant in Notting Hill, And also in 2 Weeks Notice, those were the two inspirations, Hugh Grant in Notting Hill in 2 Weeks Notice. And then last but not least, Mr. Bingley.
Oh.
From Pride and Prejudice, since Written in the Stars it wasn't a retelling of Pride and Prejudice, but it had some like nods to Pride and Prejudice. So Brendan started off as like the Mr. Bingley-esque character. So
yes, definitely. I can definitely see that for sure. Oh my goodness. That's now that I know Ken Beck was one of your inspirations, like I had to like in my head. If you have never seen Ken Beck, go follow his Instagram. You will like it.
It's worth it.
Danielle, do you know who Ken Beck is? I don't. Who's Ken Beck? Am I aging myself? Somebody help me out here. I can't be the only one. Tell me, chat, if I'm the only one. Somebody said Finnick and his sugar cubes, and another person said Lloyd. And I'm just like, who's Ken Beck?
He's a model. There was a project called the Red Hot 100, and it was a project to kind of, so redheads, like female redheads are often viewed as like, attractive and sexy, whatever. I'm not saying this because I am one. It's kind of like it's not always a positive, but redheaded males often get kind of ridiculed as being unattractive. I don't understand it, but there's a stigma. So the Red Hot 100 was like, ginger boys are hot. And so it was a whole project. There's photo books and calendars, and Ken Beck was like the poster boy. And that project his career took off from that project.
I'm so glad I asked, because Robert, our number one fan, said, I don't know who he was either. So I'm like, yay, good. That was helpful.
Yeah. So check out his Instagram. He lives in Tokyo, I think. So he posts a lot of fun things from there. And he's just nice to look at.
Big fan of eye candy. Awesome. Thank you.
Yes, definitely. So that I did not know. I love that. So as before I move on, if you do have any favorite nerdy heroes, or I would love to hear who your favorite nerd heroes are. You can drop them in the chat and we can talk about those later. So we're going to move from Brendan to Annie. And so it's, when we talk in tropes, we sometimes have we kind of try and cram things into specific categories. And I love the grumpy sunshine trope. That's super fun. And Brendan is our sunshine, but Annie isn't necessarily a grump so much as she is kind of just more this kind of, she's cynical, but she's more of a pragmatic realist. Like, she's not necessarily grumpy. She's just like, this is what it is. Love the way you dream of it. Like, that's nice that you can kind of get your head in the clouds, but my feet are on the ground, and that's where they're going to stay. And so of course he's determined. As you said, like, he's got his heart in the right place. So maybe the execution always not quite right, but he's determined to help show her that it's, he's going to show her that it's real. So would you say, Alexandria, that you are more of an Annie or a Brendan?
So I'm like Brendan when it comes to his, love of love. I mean, obviously writing romance novels, I'm all in for the HEA. I do watch like sappy proposal videos on YouTube, and I eat up romance in any form, books and movies and subplots. And I ship characters on shows that aren't canon and everything. But I don't think that I view it quite as like rosy through rose-colored glasses as Brendan does. So like Annie, I think I view it a little bit more pragmatically. And I'm not, when it comes to grand gestures, I'm a hard sell on like the grand gesture. The grand gesture has to be really meaningful for me to like buy in. Like, if somebody proposed to me on a billboard or like a jumbotron, like, I would want to like sink into the floor. So I'm definitely like Annie in that way. And I think that the more like quiet gestures are more grand because they're personal. So I don't know, 50-50 split.
Well, I mean, I think that makes perfect sense though too, because when we write, little pieces of us are into all of our characters. So to have little pieces of you in both Brendan and Annie, and beyond the romantic relationship, there is again, because Annie is the best friend of Darcy from book one. Darcy, who finds her HEA, she finds her person, and there is kind of this and all relationships, friendships who last a long period of time, especially ones that start in childhood and stay through adulthood, they kind of have to go through these growing pains, and kind of where you kind of have to realign who you are to that person, or where you fit into that person's life. And I think we really see some of that, struggle for Annie. So can you talk a little bit about, the evolution of a friendship and how we see that happening in Hang the Moon?
Yeah, friendships definitely play a really important role in all the books in the series for me, because I feel like friendships and just platonic relationships, they take as much effort and as much dedication and as much, like tender loving care as romantic relationships do. I feel like especially once you get out of school, whether it's, high school or college, and if you scatter across the country and you have jobs and starting relationships and families, if you're kind of like out of sight, sometimes it can be like out of mind. So I wanted to kind of highlight how much, work, but not work in like a negative sense, friendships take. And I wrote Hang the Moon pre-pandemic, but then I was revising it during the pandemic. And I feel like that definitely kind of hit me hard, when you can't see your friends all the time and you're having to like, find new ways of reaching out. So that was something that was really important for me to spot.
Yeah, and because it takes so much effort, and when like those things that made it easy are now taken away, you really start to figure out who's important to you, and who are you missing in your life, and who are you going to take the time and effort to keep in your life.
Exactly. Yeah, and I also wanted to give Annie, because part of the book is Annie deciding whether or not she's going to take a job in London or if she's going to move to Seattle, and so I wanted to give her more I guess of a reason to move to Seattle than just Brendan, because I didn't like the idea. I don't know if everybody like has seen Friends and knows the whole like Rachel getting off the plane for Ross. I hate that so much. So I didn't want it to be her making a decision solely based off of a romantic relationship. I wanted her to have
good. I'm very anti anyone rearranging their entire life. That's good that she's got more skin in the game beyond just the romance. Like there's in it for her. And I actually didn't really watch Friends, so I don't know that storyline, but yeah, I would be frustrated. We were watching the To All the Boys I Loved Before, that whole series, and I know that third one, there was so much angst in that about her going to the same college that Peter did, who was her love interest. And I was watching it with my oldest daughter, who was a senior in high school at the time, and there was so much like, no, do not follow the boy. And it goes both ways. When I was in high school, I had plenty of guy friends who followed their girlfriends. Same problem, and don't do that. Go where you need to go because of what you want, not because of who is there. So that's great. I really like that you added that you thought like, okay, I'm going to give her other reasons beyond just so. All right. So I wanted to talk a little bit. Okay, we're going to move back to the romantic relationship now from the friendship, and how. So this is a very character-driven story. That's a lot of what this story is about, is the development of these characters, and how they go from being because Annie, they knew each other since they were kids, so like kind of shifting that relationship. But if we had to like say what the plot is, it's Brendan trying to convince Annie that real love exists, that true love can exist, and he does it by showing her that romance is real, and he picks iconic moments from romantic comedies to reenact. So I wanted to ask you, how did you go about choosing those scenes, the scenes that you were going to use in the story?
So I picked a few of my favorites, but I specifically was seeking out like gesture-like moments that could go horribly wrong. I wanted to subvert the expectations. So, in a lot of romantic movies, you have characters on a Ferris wheel and you think they're going to kiss. Like it's going to be that moment. Like they're in forced proximity, they're going to kiss. But instead, Annie has to pee in a cup. Or, there's like the musical grand gesture moment. So you've got like Heath Ledger on the bleachers in 10 Things I Hate About You. Or I'm blanking on the character's name, but in The Wedding Singer, Adam Sandler walking down the aisle and, serenading Drew Barrymore's character. I wanted to take a moment that's like that, but then have it where the wrong song plays at karaoke to kind of like test Brendan's expectations of what he thinks romance is, but in a way that actually makes it more endearing. So his failures are a moment of growth, but in a cute way, in a funny way, because it's a rom-com. So I wanted it to be funny too. So I specifically sought out moments that I could just completely like mess up.
So take these iconic rom-com moments and sabotage them.
Exactly.
Yeah. Because growth does come through failure, and I think that that's such a great way to kind of like have this multitask for you, like have it be something that Brendan has to kind of realign his own perception of how this works, and at the same time Darcy's watching him fail at this and falling a little bit more in love with him. Not Darcy, sorry, Annie. That would be creepy. And Annie is like, as he kind of just, as things kind of go awry, that's the affection comes in. So that's super cute. Do you have a personal favorite romantic comedy?
That's so tough.
That's a tough question. I know.
Gosh. I love The Proposal.
Okay.
I do like 2 Weeks Notice a whole lot. I like Sweet Home Alabama. I like The Ugly Truth. She's All That. Those are some of my favorites.
That's a variety too. That's like a wide variety of the different ones as well. So yeah. I mean, I know this is full bottle, but I do want to take a quick survey here and ask Angelina, do you have a favorite rom-com?
Truth About Cats and Dogs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's mine.
That's with Janine Garofalo, right?
Yeah.
I need to watch that one. I have not seen it.
Across the board, absolute favorite. Yeah.
Truth About Cats and Dogs. Okay, Danielle?
I really love 10 Things I Hate About You.
That's my favorite too.
I know. Yeah, I really love that one. But I also want to give a shout out to Clueless, because I think Clueless is a really good rom-com as well.
Yes, and those are both spins on classics. So
yeah. Oh, there's a theme. That's funny. I didn't even think of that.
So if you have a favorite rom-com in the chat, please drop it for us so we can hear about them. I'd love to hear. I have like a running list of rom-coms that I haven't seen. Truth About Cats and Dogs is now on there. I just finally saw Sweet Home Alabama recently. I had never seen it before, but it's on Hoopla, which is a library, digital library thing. So I was able to watch it on Hoopla. All right. So speaking of all of these dates that Brendan sets up, he kind of like is like the tour of Seattle, and Seattle in some ways becomes a character in your story. So can you tell us a little bit about why Seattle, what your connection is to Seattle, and why you chose it?
Yeah, I grew up in Seattle. I went to school in Seattle. I lived in Seattle for a number of years before I went to college out of state. So I would say that Seattle is the city I know like the back of my hand. I don't know a city in the US better than I know Seattle. So many, I talk about it in Hang the Moon, kind of like my voice through Brendan. So many romantic movies were filmed in Seattle or were set in Seattle. And so I felt like it was the perfect backdrop for a series that I wanted to kind of serve as my love letter to the city and my love letter to the genre specifically. Mm-hmm. Just a lot of really great locations that can be a little quirky. The gum wall is one that I feel like everyone is very split on. You either think it's really gross or you think...
When I was listening to that, I'm like, wait, is this a thing? Is like...
Yeah, it started out, there's an improv theater that's right by there. And so people in line would start putting their gum on the wall while they were waiting to get into the theater. And then it just grew from there. And it's a whole alley that's just covered in gum. And it's very gross, but it's also, it's disgusting. It is, but it's It is definitely part of Seattle.
Yes, and when they're at the gum wall and Brendan blows the big bubble and she has to pop it and it's like stuck in his, and the thing is like, so that was like when I started to like to fall a little bit for Brendan, because he was so just nonchalant about it. Like he wasn't like, I know plenty of people would have been like incredibly pissed. And he was just like, whatever, this is hilarious. So I'm such a cutie. So we have time, so I am going to ask the bonus question. If you had to pick a different city to like make your, rom-com tour of rom-com moments, what would be your runner-up city to choose?
Gosh, I spent a lot of time in Nashville.
Oh.
So I would probably say, I just recently moved to Florida, but I've spent the past 2-3 years in Nashville. So I would probably say Nashville just because I'm familiar with the area, but maybe Florida too, because it's beachy and I could go the beachy route. So one of those.
Yeah, Nashville, that would be a great one. There's some great opportunities there for different kinds of things and locations. And yeah, so Angelina, what about you? If you had to do a tour of romantic moments for a book, what city would you choose?
Santiago de Compostela, Spain. It's this completely mythological fairy tale city in northwestern Spain above Portugal, and it was super isolated 20 years ago. I don't know about it now, and a friend of mine has gone back. We studied in school there and said it's a lot more open now, but it's the end of the Camino del Santiago, and the remains of St. James are buried there. And so it's very kind of old world granite, and it's got its own language, Gallego. And so what I really love about it is how separated from Western or United States you feel. And so, but it was I was there when I was 21. So it's pretty romantic. It was pretty awesome. Yeah, that place.
This is when you were feeling yourself, that time in your life.
Feeling myself. We did a meet cute, and I talked about like this era in my life when I had met my husband, but we were still like in school, and then I went to Spain, and then I came back and all of this stuff. So that's what she's referring to. But both my husband and I were pretty like, yeah, and that's changed. But I still love him. He loves me. So we've got all of our faults now. Back then we were like, faults? What faults? It's pretty awesome. So yes,
I like that, because it's, you said, it's its own language, and so like it's a completely separate place. So it's like it's almost like a forced proximity in a sense within that city. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. It's hard to get to. It's mountainous. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, I like that. Danielle, how about you?
I mean, I think I'm a sucker for books in New York, or like, and rom-com. I mean, there are a million books and movies set in New York, but there really is just something magical about it as well, I think, in its own way, and there are also some pretty annoying things about it too, but I think it's a great setting, and because there are so many different parts of New York, and they all have their own kind of set of like rules, even if you want to think about it that way, and everything. So I think that's really fun, and there are so many, there are just so many places in New York for hilarious rom-com antics to take place. So.
See, I'm easy. Like I think like with Alexandria, you kind of went with what you knew, what you were comfortable with, what you were familiar with. And for me, it's Chicago. It's Chicago because that's where I'm from. Plus, there are a lot of rom-coms in Chicago as well. Like I have the book I'm writing right now, the heroine, it kind of has her own night in, and so she went and pulls up all of the rom-coms set in Chicago, and there's like a whole bunch of them, and I'm like, oh yeah, that one's in Chicago. Oh, that one's in Chicago too. So that's, I would keep it easy and keep it there. So yeah, if you're watching the chat, and if you have a city that you think, oh, this is where a rom-com needs to be set, or I would set my rom-com, make sure you let us know.
There were some favorite rom-coms. Some favorite rom-coms were Robert was You Got Mail, Never Gets Old. Spiral 1080 was Imagine Me and You. Lauren Widows was 10 Things.
Oh, I don't know that one. Imagine Me and You?
I don't know that one either. I don't think I know that one. Lauren Widows, 10 Things I Hate About You as well. Brianne Gillen was, I absolutely consider Moonstruck a rom-com, and I just...
Oh, yes.
Oh, so good. And then where was that? Susan Kay said, would His Girl Friday be considered a rom-com? And I'm like, oh yeah, that's definitely, that was like an originator, like an amazing. She also said When Harry Met Sally starts in Chicago, but then go the wrong direction in NYC. It's very true. Yeah, but yeah, His Girl Friday was like the original rom-com. Like, how phenomenal is that movie?
Well, technically the original rom-com is It Happened One Night.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
No, but yes, His Girl Friday, there's a lot of classics. I feel like rom-coms, they go on this cycle. Like, you have like this kind of like, you know, glutton of them. Like, there's so many really good ones, and then it's a desert. And then so people are always like, why are you always talking about the rom-coms from like the, you know, the 90s? And I'm like, because there was like this moment when they were really good, and then they disappear for 10 years. They're like cicadas, and they come back.
Imagine Me and You, Spiral 1080 says, Imagine Me and You is British and lesbi gay.
Okay. Yeah, let's check it out.
Yeah. For
sure. So I also wanted to ask, so we know that the next one is Count Your Lucky Stars. You said February, early February is when it drops. So keep your eye out for that. And if you haven't picked up Written in the Stars or Hang the Moon, make sure that you can buy it from Love Sweet Arrow. And what else have you got? What you've got anything else coming up right now, Alexandria? Any other events or bookish things you want to tell us about?
Yeah. Okay. So on June 29th, I'm going to be on the Avon Instagram. We're having an Avon Instagram Live. I'm going to be joined by Olivia Waite, and we're going to be discussing the third Bridgerton book, Offer from a Gentleman. So I'm excited about that. I don't remember the exact time, but you can find that on my Instagram in the next few days. And then on June 30th, I have a panel with the Rit Bodice called Sapphic, and we're going to be discussing Sapphic romance. And so I'm really excited about both of those events.
Yeah, those both sound like great events, and I love Olivia, so it's going to be a great conversation. Yeah. All right, Angelina, do you have anything you want to tell us about?
Yes, I have some questions. I have a couple of questions from the chat. From Lauren Widows, she says, Alexandria, will you continue using signs to build your characters when you're done with the 3-book set?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah, that's definitely part of my plotting process and my character building process. I don't think that the next series that I write will focus as heavily or really focus at all on astrology, but that's definitely part of my personal. I have like character sheets that I write in Excel, and so I do, you know, like zodiac charts for all of my characters, no matter what I'm writing. So I will definitely have that information on my characters.
That's really cool. I've heard of people doing that before. I've never tried to do that, but it's so fascinating, the whole chart.
And then Robert, the series right now, it's just the 3 books are set for that series, correct?
Right. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. That was from Robert. Brienne said, I love an adorable hero, which I had to say that because how often do I get to say adorable?
I know we did not talk about the Obi-Wan of oral comment, but
Robert also asked, what are some good newer rom-coms? I normally find out about them years later. You and Alexandria, Melanie, have been like focusing on rom-coms. What are some good ones you would recommend? Somebody also mentioned in the chat, Lauren also mentioned Love, Simon, like was a good, like she didn't know if that qualified, but what are some rom-coms you would recommend, like newer ones that you guys would recommend to people?
Yeah, I recently read The Intimacy Experiment by Rosie Danan, which came out in April. And then I read Satisfaction Guaranteed by Carlia Stetz Waters, which just came out on June 1st, I think, and I highly recommend it. It's a sapphic rom-com, and it's very, very funny. It definitely qualifies as a rom-com. I know there's a lot of like back and forth about what a rom-com really is, but I was laughing consistently.
That's the one where they're trying to save a sex shop from closing. Yes.
Yeah. And it was hilarious. So those are 2 of my most recently read rom-coms that I really adored.
As far as rom-com films go that are fairly new, Set It Up, I thought was lots of fun. And that's on Netflix. I just watched Palm Springs, which is a weird one, but I thought it was actually really well done. So it's kind of a Groundhog's Day situation. It's on Hulu. I watched it on Hulu, Palm Springs, and I thought it was a great character growth situation. So I recommend that one. And then there is the mini series, the modern retake of Four Weddings and a Funeral, which is also on Hulu. And I thought that was really fun.
It's funny. Robert was like, that was a question for the chat. And I was like, I don't care. I need rom-com recommendations. So I'm asking it. Thank you, Robert. Finally, Spiral 1080 said, Alexandria, not really a question, but I love that most of your characters are by women and don't fit the stereotype.
Thank you. Yeah, that's really important for me to represent that. I feel like I've been very vocal about it lately, kind of like a little soapboxy on Twitter about it. But I feel very strongly about it, especially writing Annie, who is a bisexual heroine, but she gets her happy ever after with a man. And I wanted to just show that rep. She's still very queer, no matter who she gets her HEA with. So that's something that I will continue to write regardless of this series, and in future series, my characters will be queer regardless of the pairings.
That's great. And then so we were talking about, are there any other questions, Angelina? Okay, so we were talking about, so you have two really great events coming up. You've got the one at the Red Bodice, and you've got the one on Avon. Angelina, do you have anything that you want to talk about that you did?
Lauren Widows said, and I think it's important, she said, yeah, I'm buying. I really love how much you represent that. So awesome. It's coming out, I think Sunday. I did and the thing with Harlequin called Books and Cooks.
I saw a teaser about that. I'm like, you look like you're on a cooking show.
I am on a cooking show. A cameraman, they sent ingredients and a cameraman came to my house, like with lights and a big camera, and they set it up on Zoom. And so this, like, she's like, what's the cooking school in France? The Cordon Bleu. A Cordon Bleu school, like beautiful model hostess, teaches me how to make buttermilk chive biscuits. And we talk about me writing in my books as I'm making these biscuits. It's the coolest thing. Macy Yates did one. It's got like 11,000 views. I was like, they called, like, do you want to do this? I was like, yes. Yes. I love cooking. And
if I was like in a situation where like I thought I had my own cooking show, I would be so extra.
It was the best. I was like, I am one step from being a like one-time judge on a cooking show that nobody watches. Like, all I want I want to get just famous enough to be a one-off judge on a cooking show that like is on PBS. I don't care. So
like they like take little bites of everything and they talk about it like they have no clue what they're talking about. But they're like,
I once saw a show where there was like an act, like a comedian, and he takes a bite of something and he goes to the chef, he goes, "You cook good." I'm like, that's gonna be me. You cook good.
I am so gonna watch this. And biscuits are not easy to make, like real.
And they turned out like huge and fluffy, and I just started keto, so I was like, and they were delicious. My son, my 22-year-old, was like, "Oh, you don't want them? Okay." Like, it was the best. So that's coming out, I think, Sunday or Monday. So yeah, super excited about that.
That's cool. Like, yeah, all right, Danielle, top that.
Yeah.
Well, I can top that because future TV cooking show judge Angelina M. Lopez was on the Fresh Fiction podcast with me and Gwen. And we had a really awesome chat talking about her new book, Serving Sin, which was really funny. Angelina, I don't know if you felt this way, but we did a bunch of interviews all in like 1 week in March. And I kind of forgot, like, I was like, what did we even talk about?
I just remember, like, I think that was my first real, I don't know. Yeah. It was my first real, like, interview about Serving Sin.
Yeah.
And so you would ask me one question, and 12 minutes later, I would be like, what did I just say? I just never came up for air the whole time.
It was we had such a fun time. And then the intro conversation, Gwen and I talk about indulgences because I was kind of inspired by Angelina's book because it is the lifestyle that your heroine lives is a bit indulgent considering she's an heiress. And so, yeah, we talked about some of our favorite indulgent pop culture moments and our own personal indulgences. So that's great. And then, so that's already up. That's up. It's live. And then next Wednesday, Reese Ryan is our guest on the podcast. And she is always a delight. She's so great. And future Boozy Book Broads guest.
Yes.
So yeah, very, very fun. So yeah, that's what I've got going on.
All right, great. And then and then I have a book release coming before we see each other again on the Boozy Book Broads. Too Good to Be Real will be here finally. And our next guest on the Boozy Book Broads, July 16th, is actually my editor. So Jenny Conway of St. Martin's Press and Wednesday Books and all of that will be joining us to talk about what it was like to work with me on this book. And other stuff too, and on writing and on editing and rom-coms and pulling your author back when they get a little carried away.
So it's such a great opportunity for people who are aspiring writers, who are interested in the industry, who are writers, to really learn about what that process is and and learn from the industry people. I'm really, really excited we're going to have her on, Melanie. I think that's super
It's going to be a fun one. That's July 16th. And so we'll see you in a month for that. But before we close out the evening, Angelina needs to pull the winner of the gift card. So while she's working on that, I want to remind everyone to check out the sultry summer surprise boxes, 10% off with the code BBBJune, and you'll get 10% off of those. And yeah, so who's our winner?
The winner is Spiral 1080. I was keeping track, I had this whole thing. So Spiral 1080 is our winner. I'm going to write it in the chat, but you can email us at boozybookrods@gmail.com, and I will get you the $10 Love Sweet Arrow gift certificate.
Yeah, so are there any other questions or anything before we get ready to say goodnight? No? All right. Well, this has been incredibly fun. Alexandria, thank you for jumping on in and hanging out with us tonight. It was great. Don't forget to go look Ken up on Instagram so you can picture him in your head when you're reading Hang the Moon. And this was the Boozy Book Broad. So cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
Thanks for
everyone.
Thank you for being here